everyone, thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live discussion this morning. I'm here with Vicki Church, who is a certified recovery specialist at Safe Harbor Behavioral Health of UPMC Hammett. A big part of her job, which I wrote about in today's newspaper, is helping people who are just starting out in addiction recovery, and she does that by talking to them about her own personal experience with addiction. So Vicki, thank you for joining me, and just to jump right in, could you talk to us a little bit about what your job requires?
Yeah, I meet people where they're at. If somebody can't get somewhere and they need this extra support, the added support, I will go and meet them wherever they need me to meet them. If they're at home, if they want to just meet at Tim Hortons, it's just to make them feel comfortable. And also because I've been there, and it helps. It's an amazing thing to see if you walk into a room and you see them with a therapist sometimes, and they're really intense
and these are people who are in addiction,
yes,
dealing with addiction issues.
Oh yes, and they're really tense and they're trying to tell their story, but they're scared, and then you walk in and they just relax because they're like, okay, someone else is here that's been there. And so I basically help with peer mentoring, learning, teaching them coping skills, teaching them how to just basically get through day-to-day life every day and being able to make it in recovery.
Sure. And so a big part of what makes you able to help with that peer mentorship is your own personal experience with opioid addiction, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how you got where you are today?
Yeah, growing up, it was a pretty difficult life, except for when I was with my grandparents, of course, which mean everything in the world to me. But my mom suffered from addiction. My father suffered from alcoholism. My dad passed away when I was 17. And I started out really, really young and using. And then, throughout the years, and especially, they always say don't ever get in rehab relationships. Well, I'm the poster child for that. So I did, and I had 2 little boys out of it, so it was worth it. And 10 years later, I ended up I decided finally I was ready to get clean. After I had my son, been on the MAT program for years, I was ready to get clean. And when I finally did, my ex was still using, so I lost my children a month later, and I could have just said, whatever, I'm done, but I give up, and I didn't. Instead I fought, and I fought really hard for my kids, and it was amazing. It was a great, it was a hard fight, but it was a great fight at that. I used to hate OCY, and today I look back and I'm like, I thank them because they saved my life. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be alive today. It wasn't for drug court, if it wasn't for all these places, that I had gone through during this time. And then I had gotten sick a year later. We couldn't figure out what was wrong. My Nana was taking me back and forth to Pittsburgh, and finally, the best part about it was I had a group that I had started out with, and they were bringing meetings to my house to make sure that I had gotten through this without using. So then I finally, I finally found out what was wrong. I had fibromyalgia, and then I ended up getting, the right help that I needed. And then I got a job full time. I found out I was pregnant. I had a little girl, and so and
this is now you're in recovery. At this point.
And I was 2 years into my recovery, and I found out I was pregnant with her. And I got a job at Country Fair, became the food manager there after I had her. So everything went really fast. And when I became food manager, I actually was working and going to school. So, the days I had off were the days I was going to school. 2 months straight, I had the best boss. She was wonderful. She made sure that I could do it. And then I went for my certification. Actually, 1 year today, I got my certification to be a certified recovery specialist. And so that is an amazing feeling.
Can you talk about what a certified recovery specialist is?
Yeah, it's basically what I do. It's somebody who can go out in the community. We can go to meetings with people, especially when they just get into recovery, they're very nervous. They don't know anything about meetings. They don't know, they've never met anybody. So to get them to actually go to one, that is awesome. And then on top of that, if you can help them realize that how much recovery is important and how much coping skills, to be able to get through something. Like if you lose someone dies, if you lose your children and you need help through this, like you can get through it, but you have to work pretty hard at it. But it is worth it in the end. But yeah, a certified recovery specialist is able to meet someone where they're at. We're able to just mentor someone, being able to be that added support that someone needs in the community. And I mean, we learn a lot. Like, we learn just as much as everybody else has to learn at these places.
So you described your own personal experience with addiction. Why do you think it's important to have someone who's in that peer role, someone who has experience personally with addiction, to help other people who are just sort of coming out of it, who are just trying to get started in recovery?
If you don't have support, you're not going to make it. That's one thing that I learned over the years, after trying to get clean every now and then, throughout them years that I was in active addiction. I didn't have support. So support is the number one thing that you need. And if you have somebody that is willing to go to a meeting with you or sit there and talk to you, even listen, just listen to what you have to say. Because that's the hardest part, is like they feel like their phone is 1,000 pounds and it's so hard to pick it up, and it's so hard to ask for help. But when they have somebody to be able to reach out to them and be able to tell them it's going to be okay instead of them calling us, it helps them so much. And it's so important to have that support, because if you don't have support, I mean, you're alone. You feel alone, and that's when normally you go right back to active addiction.
And do you think it makes a difference to have someone who has been through those very specific experiences, who has felt those cravings, who knows exactly what the person who's dealing with addiction is feeling? Do you think that that's an important part of it too?
Absolutely.
Why do you think so?
Because you understand. Like when I was younger, if somebody would have asked me what's going on in your life, and bad things were happening and nobody knew, or they would ask me, I wasn't going to talk to them because they didn't understand. If you can understand that person and understand what they're feeling, then they'll talk to you more. They open up way more than they do now. Like, I know that it was hard for me to talk to my therapist for so long because she didn't understand, how I felt. And when you don't understand how they're feeling, it's more uncomfortable to be with someone. And when you do understand what they're feeling, they can open up to you. They can tell you everything, and they know that you're not going to judge them, because I mean, I'm the same thing as anybody else. I am not above anybody. We are all equal. I have done some of the worst things, and I have done a lot of good things. So I'm making up for it in my recovery. But in the past, I mean, I'm no better than anybody else.
And part of today's story was about how you are the first person to hold this role, the Certified Recovery Specialist role, at UPMC Hammett facilities. So what does that role look like? What are you doing when you work with clients who are just starting out in recovery?
First, I meet up with them so that way they can meet who I am and see, finally meet me. And then after that, normally we'll get together and I'll find out what is going on, what's standing in their way of their recovery. And a lot of the times it's coping skills, how to be able to deal with things. Some of the time they just need that somebody to show them the way, like just help them and show them kind of like where to go and what to do, because a lot of people, and believe it or not, they don't know what these programs are out there, and they don't know that there's help out there. They feel alone. They feel like they're the only person that's ever gone through this. And when you actually go somewhere and you meet people that are just like you feel so much more comfortable.
And big part of today's story was also about your work with the Women's Recovery Center and how you work with some women who are expectant moms or who are new moms who are dealing with addiction issues. Can you talk about why that's a particularly vulnerable population and why that population needs the extra support?
Absolutely. I mean, women, they're going to lose their children if they, and that's the hardest part is you're going to lose your kids.
If you're in active addiction.
If you stay in active addiction. And if you have that help, that's going to be able to make sure that your kids, they come out healthy, safe, and then you have that added support there. So this program means a lot to me. We've talked about that before, how much this program is special to me. And
well, and it's special to you because you had your own experience with being pregnant while you were still actively addicted, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about what that was like?
Yeah, my 7-year-old son today, he when I was pregnant with him, I found out I was about 4 or 5 months into my pregnancy. I had no idea I was pregnant, and I was using heavily, and I was drinking heavily. And when I found out, I needed help. I knew I needed help. I did not want to have my son like that, and I did not want to lose him. So when I got on the MAT program, there was nothing. There was nobody there. I mean, when I went to see the doctor, he didn't tell me that there was programs out there. He didn't say anything. Just, you got your medicine, you left. That was it.
And can you describe what an MAT program is for people who might not know?
Yes, it's basically a medication, like a Subutex, that will help with your basically with your opioid addiction, or even your alcoholism. But it makes sure that your baby stays safe.
Yeah, it provides a safer alternative to continuing to use street drugs, because withdrawal can be really dangerous to unborn children.
Very,
right?
very dangerous, yes. And you can end up losing your child over it. And I almost lost my son because I tried to detox on my own. And so instead, finding this program, that was amazing. And then I had my son, and to watch him go through detox for 3 weeks, alone, like with no support there.
You were alone.
Yeah. And there was no support. There was nobody to say it's going to be okay. And you're not a horrible person because you did this. That's what I felt. I felt like I was the worst person in the world because my son was detoxing. And you're not, because you saved your son's or your child's life. You made sure that you did something safe, so that way they didn't come out, addicted to heroin or anything else, or having fetal alcohol syndrome, like stuff like that. And that, I mean, to have my son today, and he's 7 years old, and he's amazing. He likes to bounce off the walls a little bit, but I mean, what child doesn't at 7 years old? But to be able to look at him and say that, that was saving his life, and I was able to have him, and I still have him, and custody of my children today. I share it with my grandmother, my Nana. Sorry, I can't call her grandmother. She will kill me if I say that. But yeah, if I have a lot of support, and my son he's an amazing kid. And
you've since had a daughter while you were in recovery, right?
Yes,
what was that like?
I have. It is so amazing to actually, it's your second chance at life. You're able to start over. And this time, my boys have gone through so much. I put them through so much, and I'm going to be making up for it for the rest of my life. But they understand today. My daughter will never have to see me that way. That is a great feeling, to be able to, teach her about recovery, and just having her in recovery was amazing, because it was such a difference. And being able to leave the hospital the next day with my daughter, that was a great feeling, to know that she came out completely healthy, and I didn't have to worry about something going wrong with her.
And you said that you didn't feel that you had the support that you needed when you had your son while you were still dealing with addiction. What support do you offer to women who are in that position now, and why do you think that that's important?
Well, now I can give my own story to them, especially when they understand that they're not alone. There's others out there that have been there, and they understand. They understand that feeling of loneliness. They understand that feeling of being a horrible person for putting their kids through that. And you're able to give that support to them. You're able to just tell them, look, it's going to be okay. And we're going to get through this. And that's the thing. We're going to get through this. Not you're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. And being able to just hold their hand and tell them that, you know, you'll be there to support them the entire time. And if they need just someone to talk to, if they need the, you know, sometimes I do this thing. It's kind of like meditation, and it's wonderful. It brings you back to the here and now. So that's kind of one of the things that I do work on with them, and it brings. I mean, they feel wonderful afterwards, and it's able to just make them focus on today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. The best thing I was ever told in my recovery so far is if you are worried about the past, you're going to suffer from depression. If you worry about the future, you're going to suffer from anxiety. But if you worry for just today, you'll be at peace, and you are. If you just focus on today, and what you have to get through today, and just, as we say, taking it one day at a time, because you can't expect to be able to take like the world on every, you know, for the rest of your life. We can't say, oh, we're never going to do this, because you can never say never. That's huge, especially in recovery.
And one of the other programs that you work with in your role as a certified recovery specialist is the warm handoff program. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what your role is?
The warm handoff program is very, very important. This is when somebody overdoses and they go to the hospital. There's an immediate response that we're able to like reach out right away, help them get the support that they need, anything that they need. Like, you know, if they want to go to treatment, because this is the most crucial time. If you give them any more time and they leave, you may never see them again. And if you do see them, it could be in the newspaper the next time.
Because they passed away.
Yeah. So, I mean, to get them where they're at right then and there, most of the time, you're going to get people that do want the help and will take the help. But if you wait too long, and that's why that program is so important. And especially, I mean, I loved it when I got to go in there, and I got to shadow a few people, and it was amazing, because they, you know, them seeing somebody that has been there, and you know, they were able to open up a little bit more.
So you thought having someone who has been through addiction helped the patients, the clients, open up more?
And I mean, just being told that by the other therapists that I work with, you know, they've said it, you know, that when I came in, it was easier for a client to actually open up, and that's a great feeling. Like, that's something that I want to do. It's more about them than anything, and helping them, you know, to recover.
I just wanted to chime in and say you're getting so much support on the live feed. And one comment was that no doubt it makes a difference. No one knows better how to get out of the hole than someone who's been there. We need more Vickies to be CRS, which is great. But talk about like really what made you want to take that step to help others in your position. Well,
in the programs, we say that you have to give it to get it. So in the beginning, it was more about taking care of myself. As I went on, you have to help others. You have to reach out. You have to make sure that, you know, everybody has that support. And when I started doing that, and I started sponsoring, first I of course got a sponsor and worked the steps and all of that. But after that, when I sponsored women, it made me feel like I could do this, I could make a difference. And that's all I wanted. I wanted to make a difference. And so finally, when I heard about the Certified Recovery Specialist classes, I was told by a counselor, one of my old counselors, and a good friend today, she actually is the one who got me in the class. And it was wonderful, and it's amazing, because you can make a difference. You may not think that you can, but even the littlest thing that you say could change somebody's life, and that's huge.
And also one more that came in. How do you overcome the stigma of saying you are a recovered addict? How do you deal with that?
So in the beginning, I used to hate it. I absolutely could not stand people who talked about us. But today I laugh about it because honestly, they just don't understand. They don't know. They're not educated. They have no idea what we go through. If you haven't been there, you can't sit there and say that you understand. The studies have been done. It's been shown. It's a disease. It's something we suffer from. And yes, at times there is a point where we have a choice. Like now, I have a choice. But after I make that, if I were to make that choice, then after that, the disease kicks in. And the disease it's always waiting around the corner, is what I always say. And the stigma, honestly, if you look at Vicky's Journey, I have 3,400 followers.
That's your Facebook page that you've started about your recovery?
Yes, and today, if I can have 3,400 followers and not have one person say something negative on there, you have to see that stigma is starting to slow down a little bit, especially because if I can go into the hospitals with my boss now and speak about, addiction and recovery and to show them that, sometimes it can be kind of hard for people that time and time again, doctors, nurses, anybody, cops that see this every single day and they get sick and tired of seeing it. Well, for them to understand it from a recovering point of view, then they kind of look at it like, wow, there is hope. There is hope out there, and people can change. Because 4.5 years ago, you would have never, I would have never thought I'd be here today. I thought I was going to be dead at 30. I never thought I'd make it. And just to imagine that where I could have gone and things, it's an amazing feeling to be here today, because this is an opportunity that I never saw coming.
Yeah. And why did you start your Facebook page, Vicky's Journey? Do you think that that's had an impact on reducing stigma?
A lot. I started it about 2.5 years ago. I had gotten my Nana had gotten a very mean letter in the mail about me. So I was going to close my Facebook page. I was done. I was like, all right, and I put on there, sorry everyone, but I'm going to be shutting my Facebook page down. And the response that I got was amazing. They were like, no, please don't. Just keep going. You inspire us. And I had someone contact me and say, hey, I can start a page for you, a group, so that way, you can just go on there and you don't have to deal with the drama. And so I started it. I started out with 20 people. And to have 3,400 people today, that is amazing. That's a great thing. And it's helped so much. I had a cop reach out to me, and this is the reason why I even got this job. That's why I always say nothing happens by coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. I was working at Country Fair. I was a food manager. He got in touch with me. He wanted to meet up and hear my story. I told him my story, him and his wonderful wife, and another cop. And when they heard it, they were like, yes, we want you to come speak at the Harbor Creek event for the community. And I said, absolutely. So I went and I spoke, because that's one of my #1 rules. When I started recovery, I said, if I'm asked to speak, I'm not going to say no unless I'm in the hospital. So I never have said no. And I went and spoke there, and I had announced that I had became a certified recovery specialist, and I was offered jobs right after. And then I had met my boss, and my boss said, hey, why don't you go on this link and apply? And then 2 interviews later, here I am. So it's possible, and there's hope, and you can do it. Hard work pays off. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be 3 months from now, but eventually it does pay off.
Maddie, we have a question.
Great.
What are your feelings about those who say that addiction is not a disease, that it is and it was a choice?
Like I said, they're not educated. They don't know. They can say all they want, but unless you are educated and you can sit here and tell me statistics and be a scientist and just, be able to go through everything with me. You cannot tell me that this is not a disease. This is a very serious disease, and we're seeing it firsthand. We're seeing people dying like all the time. This is, now it's now not just epidemic, it's a pandemic. It's everywhere. It's all over the United States. And it's just getting worse and worse. And if you can get people out there to help and reach out, maybe we can slow this down a little bit.
And you're now you have more than 4 years of time in recovery behind you. So what are your biggest pieces of advice for people who maybe are feeling like they want to take that step into recovery, they want to get started?
You gotta ask for help. You have to. You can't do this alone. There is so much help out here. We have so many people that are willing to help you at any time. Where I work, it's amazing. The people there, they treat you amazing. I've never been in such a wonderful place that doesn't judge you. I'm not judged I don't even feel like I'm a recovering addict in this place.
Mm-hmm.
They treat me like a normal human being. And that's how I've always wanted to be treated. If I wouldn't have asked for the help and reached out, I would have never stayed clean. People need to reach out. They need to ask for help. If you are, in that step where you're like, I kind of want the help, but I kind of don't. And, I have kids and I don't want to leave them. Well, you have to think about it like this. If you didn't leave your kids for a month, what's a month compared to the rest of their life? Because what if you're not promised tomorrow? None of us are. And if you don't want to take that step, you have to remember there's people out here. We can find you help with your children. We can find you help in anything that you have problems into getting treatment or into help. We can even just offer that added support just to help make that first step.
I have a few questions. Vicki, I don't know if you can speak to this, but do you know if addiction tends to run in families? And same person asked this question, do they have programs that are specifically for just men? So, yeah, the two-parter, but you can go on.
Yeah. Okay. The first question, I don't know, because I'm not a scientist. I can't sit here and tell you that it definitely runs in families, but I can say in my experience in my family, my Nana, she's not an addict. She's not, an alcoholic. My dad was, my mom was, I am, my brothers are, but my aunt isn't, my uncle isn't, so you can't say that this is a family thing. And yes, there are programs that are just for men. I actually do work with men as well. I don't just work with the women. So I am that added support for a man as well. And but there are programs out here for men. Salvation Army, the Mission, New Life program, that's an amazing program. All you have to do is go to rehab first and then apply with them. And I've seen it feels like miracles because they have a wonderful success rate. And so, that's promote them or
no,
I'm
sure,
just
but
saying they are a wonderful program. And
yeah, I have written in the past about the New Life program, which is specifically designed for men. I wrote a story about a man who had come through that program, Nate Eckelberger, and he has done really well, and he's been doing well. So there are definitely programs out there that are available for men specifically.
Yeah, today's their graduation, so I get to be a part of that. So that's a great feeling, and that's wonderful because they really are. It's a great program, and we can help in any way to try to get you into any program. We don't just say, oh, you have to go to Safe Harbor. We can get you anywhere that you need to go, wherever you feel comfortable. We try our best to help anybody we can.
And I think just to wrap up our discussion, I was just hoping you could sort of reiterate why you think the peer mentorship, the mentorship between people who have both been through addiction, why you think that's so crucial for people who are just starting out.
Because of the understanding, the not just the empathy but the sympathy. You can actually relate to what they're going through. You feel their pain. You know how that feels instead of just being, having read it out of a textbook and actually going through it. And I know from experience now from doing this the past couple of months, and it's a great feeling to see someone go so far. But when you first hear their story, you feel their pain, you know that pain, and so you can get on that level of, look, I've been there, and this is what happened to me, and if I can get through it, then anybody can. So that's something that you have to remember, is that I've been, back there and done that, and I made it, and I'm still making it. I can't say I made it, but I'm making it every single day, and just taking it one day at a time.
Just because people are still asking questions, people can personally contact you on the Facebook page.
If they go to Vicky's Journey, there's no apostrophe. It's just Vicky's, Vickys, a Journey. Yes, you can go on my page, and I can add you. It's a closed group, but yes, I can add you on there.
Great. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Vicky, so much for coming in and telling us your story.
You're welcome. Thank you.